Hi everyone, welcome into this week's My Weekly CBS Fix. This week's video is dedicated for Shlomo for Baruch Yosef Aharon ben Yehudis, Nechama bas Chai Rivka, and Shlomo David Mordechai ben Rachel, and all the other sick people among the Jewish people. May they all have a complete recovery. In Parshas Matos, the Haftarah of Parshas Matos doesn't necessarily connect with the Parsha, but we read what is called the first of the three Haftarahs called the Gimel de Parnusa, the three Haftarahs that have to do with the destruction, the calamities that befall the Jewish people. Then after we read the Zayin, the Nechemta, the seven Haftarahs that have to do with the eventual consolation that the Jewish people will have. And we read from the book of Jeremiah, from Yirmiyah Hanavi, who really had it hard, because Yirmiyah, the Talmud tells us in Tractate Baba Basra 14b, says that the entire book of Yirmiyah is completely and totally dedicated to the destruction of Jerusalem. And Hashem told Yirmiyah not to deviate from one word from his message to the Jewish people. And there's a lot of messages we have to take from the destruction of Jerusalem. We have to realize, first of all, that the destruction was not caused by natural events. It wasn't that just that the army of the Babylonians became strong and they really desired the land of Israel and they were weak and they couldn't win. As we've explained before, when the Jewish people sin, Hashem just goes like that to the puppets of the nations of the world to send them as his emissaries to go and destroy the Jewish people if they are so deserving of such. And the opposite is also true. When the Jewish people are deserving of reward, they are rewarded, as certainly history has shown us. Now, Hashem tells Jeremiah that he was appointed to uproot, to break, to destroy, demolish, but ultimately to rebuild or to build and to plant. Now those were some words of consolation for Yirmiyah, for Jeremiah, because when he heard at the end that really all this was for the purpose of really building and replanting, that was kind of a consolation. As our sages tell us, stiras zakenim binyan. When our sages, our older sages, destroy something, they're really building. And it looks bad right now, but really it's for the greater good. And we can apply that to over here. When Hashem destroys something, it's ultimately for everybody's benefit. And Hashem asked him, what did you see in the vision that I saw? Hashem showed him a vision, a dream-like vision. And he said he saw an almond tree. He saw the rods of the almond tree. Now, what was so special about the rods of the almond tree? Because the almond tree grows actually during the winter, during the frost season. And it actually takes 21 days for the almonds to grow. And 21 days is the exact amount of time of what we call our 3-week period, from the 17th of the month of Tammuz, which is when they started to breach through the walls of Jerusalem, all the way until the ultimate destruction of the temples themselves, which both took place on the month of Av. But the fact that something was actually able to grow during those frosty months, the almond tree, those were also consolations. And as the story goes, Hashem had commanded Yirmiyah that he should write down the book of Lamentations, the book of Eicha, and it should be written in the order of the Aleph Beis, and it was written during the times of the wicked king Yehoiakim, and he wrote it down, and Jeremiah told his closest student Baruch ben Neriah that he should go and read it in the town square on the next fast day. Now, even though at that time the people were idol worshippers, nevertheless they were still close to Hashem, really. And when they heard that Baruch ben Neriah was going to read to them from a book, from a Megillah that Yirmiyah had written, they all came to hear, and they heard all the awful things that were going to happen, and they rent their garments, and they were so sad. And they heard, and how is it that the city dwells alone? The city that used to be full of people is now like a widow, and all its streets are bare and desolate. Nobody's doing any pilgrimages anymore to Jerusalem. And they realized it was all because of their sins. And they said, we have to read this to the king himself. But they were nervous because the king, he could get angry. They read it to the king, and the king was reading it, had it read to him in the warmth of his castle during the winter months of Kislev. And when he heard the verse that said that Jerusalem lay desolate, he said, "What do I care as long as I'm still the king?" But when he heard that its enemies were going to be their leaders, he broke out into this uncontrollable fury. And he said, "Who wrote this?" And he took a knife and he cut out those letters of the Megillah, and he told them to continue reading. And he read about he heard about the eventual destruction of the entire Jerusalem. And again, he got all angry. Eventually, he burnt the entire thing, and he demanded that Yirmiyah and Baruch ben Uriah be brought to him so he can kill them. But Hashem had promised him, anybody that tries to hurt you, don't worry, I will always protect you. And this is one of those times that it happened. Mysteriously, they could not be found. And eventually, Hashem reordered Yirmiyah to rewrite down the Book of Lamentations. He wrote it threefold in the Aleph Beis, in the order of the Aleph Beis, and that is the Book of Lamentations that we read about the unfortunate destruction of the temple. But at the end, we also read about that Hashem tells Yirmiyah that the Jewish people will one day be rewarded. Why? Because they followed me, Be'eretz lo zerua, in a land that was not planted at all, meaning in the desert. We followed Hashem out of Egypt into the desert, and there we became Hashem's bride. And because Hashem made that promise to us then, so we forever have that promise that a husband never lets go of his promised one, of his beloved bride. There's no such thing as divorce by Hashem. And we will always be Hashem's. And Hashem sometimes destroys, but it's only to replant us, and it's always only to rebuild us back up. And one day, the Babylonians will pay ultimately in the future for destroying the Jewish people, as so will all their enemies. And one day we will actually merit the nechama, the actual ultimate consolation in seeing the third temple be built speedily in our days. May we all have a nechama, may we all have a Yeshua, salvation, and may we all feel that Hashem will be with us, is with us, and will forever be with us. Thank you for listening.